Hello everyone and welcome back to the series. Before we begin, a big thanks to my channel members for their continued support. The Ark has a deep history and countless stories buried by the sands of time. Many secrets lay hidden within humanity's final safe haven, and just like before, the commander sets out once more to uncover the truth. We begin this chapter with Counters and the commander moving towards the research facility Snow White had guided them to. So far, things are looking good. They have enough supplies to reach their destination. However, this is NIKKE we're playing, so you all know far too well that this blissful lull of our group will soon be disturbed. While the commando unit are in high spirits, bantering with one another, Rappy suddenly stops in her tracks. She calls out to the vacant expanse behind them, advising whoever had been tailing Counters to reveal themselves. Rappy doesn't give the unwanted guest any chances, giving a countdown to show themselves. With a defeated sigh, Papillon comes out of hiding. This is Chief Burningham's one and only NIKKE, a NIKKE he had ordered to tail the commando unit during their operation. Papillon is pleased that Anise recognizes her, always seeing her trailing behind Chief Burningham. The commander asks why she is following them, to which she responds saying that she's there to lend a helping hand. Even with this response, the commando unit still remains on edge. Rappy questions Papillon as to her true reasons for following them, inquiring if it's to uncover any further information regarding Marion. While she does admit to wanting information, Papillon also ponders on what further benefits the Counters can provide her besides that info. Papillon proposes a quid pro quo type of relationship between herself and the Counters. She hints at how the commander and the Counters may be able to receive some top secret information about a certain deputy chief in the process. To entice this deal, Papillon discloses some additional information. It is widely believed in the Ark that there are 0 survivors on the rapture-infested surface. This notion, however, is one giant lie. There is in fact a lost utopia where humans have gathered and are living quite comfortably. Papillon states that the higher-ups of the Ark have known about these locations for a very long time. Though the group is silenced by this revelation, Neon chalks it up to being a place similar to the amusement park featured in NIKKE's first event, NIKKE ID. The commander then presses Papillon further, asking her why the commando unit should trust the information that she just told them. Papillon's rebuttal is the fact that she can give confirmation to her claims. With this fickle form of reassurance, Papillon joins the group with Counters devising code words to avoid revealing the credentials of their mission to her. As they press onward, conversing through code words, the team closes in on their target location. Papillon, evidently, is irritated with the secrecy Counters is using around her. However, Anise states that it's necessary. Security is of the utmost importance on this mission. Papillon tries once more to get information out of the Counters. This time, she suggests a one question, one answer type of scenario. She asks the group what they're looking for. What is the sewage the Counters are seeking out? Neon simply replies that it's where sewer water flows from. Anise is the one who gives a more viable answer. She tells her it's a place where heretics are created. However, when Papillon asks if this is true, Anise simply says no and gives her another bogus answer. Papillon, irritated with the Counters' antics, asks why they're not curious about the information that she possesses. She asks if the knowledge of an entire area existing on the surface doesn't pique their interest. The commander is indeed interested, affirming Papillon's suspicions. She is scraping for anything at this point, and practically desperately asking the Counters to give her any crumb of information that she can go off of. The commander retorts, saying he can't tell Papillon anything due to the fact that Burningham would only take it away from them. All their hard work would be for naught in the end if he revealed this information now. Papillon, of course, says that Chief Burningham finding out wouldn't be all that bad, and it would be for the Ark's benefit, for humanity's benefit. Though on a surface glance, this statement may be true, our time in the story has made it apparent that the Ark has a dark side hidden to the public. With this brief back and forth, Counters and Papillon reach a research facility. Upon approaching the establishment, something feels eerily off. The security system seems to be disabled, and as the group makes their way in, things appear to be going a little too smoothly. With the group inside the facility, Counters drops a code word talk with Papillon. There's no sense if she's already within the facility alongside them. The group then begins to search for any remnants of Vaphaus. Following the brief information that Snow White had given them, they make it to the floor of the facility, a place that they suspect to find cartridge cases. Papillon asks if they're looking for Vaphaus, and Neon Neon, says yes without giving it a second thought. While examining the facility, Papillon soon stumbles across old research notes, and this, with the context of Red Ash, is a crucial piece of information. The research paper outlines a test subject, one RHX, who is a blood type holder. Tests were conducted and a unique substance was extracted from the subject's blood. Injecting said substance into the Herrick Anachiro resulted in the complete eradication of all nanosubstances in the subject's body. This substance has been deemed as Vaphaus. For those of you wondering, yes, this test subject was the legendary commander of the Goddess unit, meaning the cliffhanger ending we got from Red Ash has at least one question answered. He lived past the point of his meeting inside of the Ark, and even though Lilywise may have passed, he still led the remainder of Goddess till his death or disappearance. This document also confirms that there are more than one heretic roaming the surface. Although counters thought Marion was the only heretic in modern day, Papillon insinuates that that isn't the case, however, refuses to divulge any further information. The commander keeps reading the data on the report and finds the location of the cartridge that they're after. Knowing the building's location and roughly how to navigate towards it, the group sets forth to achieve their objective and retrieve more samples of Vaphaus. Within Building 9, the group finds a big freezer which has the cartridge cases within it. Surprisingly, of the 12 slots, only one still contained a full flask, the rest remained empty. Papillon surmises that they were beaten to the punch, but the only question is, who had beaten them there? We know Snow White had one piece of Vaphaus that she'd given to the commander, but for all of them to be missing is grounds for suspicion. Upon this discovery, the room falls silent, and the counters feel that something is incredibly off. The security system being down, the missing flasks, the ease the group made it into this facility, things were not adding up. Rappy says that she's not detecting any heat sources from the Raptures. However, Anise has a more sinister thought. She asks what if the enemy this time isn't the Raptures. Anise then shifts the blame to Papillon, saying that she could have double-crossed them. And as Papillon forms a rebuttal, there's a sudden noise that sounds out as the wall behind the group shatters. From behind the rubble, they hear a male voice shout out, commanding 3 mysterious Nikkes to subdue the counters.
Isabel, cover the commander.
Be good and hold still.
Haran, tie up the Nikkes.
Crows, attack.
Noah, block all escape routes.
My favorite.
It is here that we are introduced to Johann, a commander accompanied by 3 pilgrims, Isabel, Haran, and Noah. Johann states that he is going to ask the commander a few questions, and if the commander wants to live, he is to give Johann a proper answer. Johann asks who the commander is. The commander falls silent, only to be met with Isabel's gun. He replies that he's a commander from the Ark. Johann pulls a flask of Vaphaus from his coat and states that the commander could have just stayed safe underground. He then asks why a commander from the Ark would seek out Vaphaus, an item used to kill heretics. The commander's answer is to liberate Nikkes. For once, Johann is puzzled by the commander's answer. However, Isabel explains what the commander exactly means. The commander wants to use Vaphaus to destroy the nymph in a Nikke's body, thus liberating them from this endless cycle of resurrection. Johann's last question is the most important: the liberation of Nikkes, or reclaiming the surface. The commander responds with saying the liberation of Nikkes, and with this, Johann tells him that he may die now. He grabs the commander by the neck and hurls him towards a hole in the wall with superhuman strength. The counters scramble to help the commander but are stopped by Noah. As Johann watches the commander plummet, he tosses a flare out the window, leaving the rest of counters to the Raptures. With this, Johann turns back to his squad, saying they're heading back to a place called Eden. Slowly coming to, the commander awakens to Haran, who is looming over him. She asks if he's okay, and apologizes for the rough time she'd given the commando unit back in the research institute. She regards that they've met before, but this time, he's in her neck of the woods. This also, interestingly enough, confirms that all the NIKKE Bond stories are canon, this previous meeting referring back to our journey with Haran on the surface in her Bond story. Haran properly introduces herself as a pilgrim serving Eden, a sanctuary on the surface. The commander, rightfully so, is a bit confused, asking Haran why she saved him. Haran's response is simple: it was simply because she felt like it. The commander is puzzled by this reply, and rebuttals that Johan wanted him dead. Although her commander wanted to kill him, she wanted to save the commander, so she simply did just that. According to Haran, their squad tries their best to not involve themselves into others' affairs. That's their one rule. So long as they're willing to face the consequences, they are free to do as they wish. The commander regards how that is a stark contrast to the Ark, which Haran takes as a compliment. Haran takes a jab at the Ark, stating that if they followed Haran's set of rules, things would be peaceful there, much like the paradise that she is from now. The commander inquires about this paradise, and Haran states that he will be shocked when he sees how things are run in Eden. It's vastly different from the Ark, a place where humans and Nikkes can coexist. Haran then offers to take the commander to Eden, and with the commander agreeing, knowing his chances of survival are slim, Haran begins her journey back, telling the commander to try to keep up. As they venture on the surface, the commander is under Haran's care. When encountering raptures, she advises him to go into hiding. The commander remarks how strong Haran is, and taking the compliment, Haran replies that she has to be strong in order to survive on the surface. She also remarks that Johan is as strong as she is. She then discloses a bit about Johan's past, that he too was once a weak human like the commander, but over time, he swapped his broken bones and tattered skin for mechanical parts. Haran also stated that Johan had saved her in a way. Prior to meeting him, Haran believed that all humans were doomed to be prey for all eternity. However, thanks to Johan, she came to view that statement differently. The commander asks why Johan was going through all that trouble, and Haran's response is quite simple. He is obsessed with reclaiming the surface, so obsessed that the thought has consumed him entirely. Johan's viewpoint on the Ark is very valid here as well. To Johan, the surface will never be reclaimed if left to the cowardly bureaucrats of the Ark. Johan wants to reclaim the surface for humanity, no matter what the cost may be. Haran then poses a situational question to the commander. Even with Vophaus, would the commander still liberate Nikkes? And if he did, what would his course of action be should a heretic survive and threaten the surface he recaptured? The commander answers that he would do all he could, including putting his life on the line. This answer, however, seems to disappoint Haran. The location they arrive to next seems to be a desolate wasteland. Evidently, Haran intends to test the commander here. She states that during their journey, she tried to figure out the commander, but words alone weren't enough. Giving one's life to a cause is something that cannot be proven by words alone, so she wants to test the commander's resolve. Haran states people reveal who they really are when faced with death. With that, they hear a rapture in the distance, a prime candidate Haran will use in this test of will with the commander. When the rapture is defeated, Haran tells the commander he passed the first test. However, that praise is short-lived. Haran sprays particles from her hand which seep into the sand, bringing the fallen rapture back to life. Haran states that this may be a little too much and sends her crow into the air, dropping spores onto the rapture, slowing its movements. It appears the rapture is malfunctioning, which Haran remarks would be easier for the commander to handle. Also, yes, we just saw NIKKE revive and suppress a rapture, a power that could come in handy in the near future. The commander's next test is to take out the raptures. Haran mocks that humans can't even defend themselves against them, even when they're on the brink of death. Haran wants the commander to prove his resolve through sheer actions, and graciously, she also left items in the pit that the commander can use to assist him. With this, Haran leaves the pit as the raptures rush the commander. His second test had started, and as the commander battles the raptures, Haran remains bored and unimpressed. She remarks how she would rather watch paint dry than see this pathetic display. 4 long hours have passed, and she tells the commander to either kill the raptures or die. Haran can't bear to watch this pathetic display anymore, and decides to leave the scene to fetch more essence. 5 grueling hours later, Haran returns, surprised that the commander is still alive. Haran has brewed a soup for 2 people as she awaits for the final result of the battle, anticipating the commander to survive. At high noon, Haran had finally had enough of the stalemate. Descending into the battlefield with her sight, she easily dispatches both raptures, disappointed that the commander hadn't killed them himself. As she approaches the commander, ready to end his pathetic existence, she stops dead in her tracks. She lowers her weapon, stating that the commander had passed. The poor, exhausted man had passed out while standing up. Even until the bitter end, his resolve didn't waver, and to Haran, that's more than enough to spare his life this time. Once more, with blurry vision, the commander is greeted by Haran. She is holding the commander when he comes to, and congratulates him for passing the test. She then informs him that she took care of the raptures. From this point onward, the commander is on his own. Haran points the commander in the direction of Eden, and asks if the commander is up for his final challenge. Agreeing to this final task, Haran states someone will be waiting for him once he arrives. Without elaborating any further, the commander is urged to go by Haran, beginning the final trek of his journey to Paradise. The commander continues onward, walking through what feels like an endless wasteland. From afar, Haran's crow keeps a watchful eye over him as he navigates past wandering raptures. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, the commander stumbles across a paradise amidst the war-torn surface. With a smiling face, an angelic voice greets him, welcoming him to Eden. With the commander meeting face to face with this pink-haired woman, the scene slowly begins to fade out. We are then met with Johan and are introduced to Cecil. Johan informs Cecil that they have retrieved Unchained. Cecil's response is it's about time that he'd gotten it to her, stating how she expected someone as skilled as Johan to be more expedient with this mission. Johan hands the Vophouse off to Cecil, who confirms his authenticity. He asks if it'll be enough to take down Nihilister, and Cecil's reply is that all of that depends on Johan's actions. If Johan can tag her with one shot, then it'll be more than enough. Johan also informs Cecil that he met a commander from the Ark at the Research Institute. He also tells her how the commander's plan was to utilize Vophouse to liberate NIKKEs. Cecil then asks Johan what he did with the commander, and he informs Cecil of his actions. Surprisingly, she simply states that sounds like something Johan would do. Cecil remarks how the commander would see how important Nymph is after witnessing the NIKKEs of Eden, all except for Dorothy, who Cecil seems to despise.
Not least of all Dorothy. She is the bane of my existence. She's always up to no good. Worst of all, she has the ear of all the other NIKKEs. Have you heard of her latest escapade? She brought outsiders to Eden without so much as a word to me.
Cecil is willing to bet the 5 uninvited guests are the aforementioned commander and his NIKKEs. Cecil also advises Johan that they should both wait to see exactly what Dorothy is planning. Recounting the commander's arrival to Eden, Dorothy tells him to consider her a guide. She calls the commander by his name, and when asking how she knows this information, Dorothy explains how anyone who can pass Haran's test is seen as someone who can bring great change to the surface. The commander informs Dorothy that he has no plan to stay in Eden long term, but Dorothy tells him to relax. No one is going to force him into any major missions without his consent. Dorothy begins to give a tour of Eden's grounds. And Eden, to say the least, is nothing short of exceptional. Eden is remarkable, able to replicate how the surface looked prior to the Rapture invasion. Eden is also equipped with a full-fledged garden, which she shows off to the commander first. Picking a golden apple, she hands it to the commander, offering him to try some. Just like Adam and Eve, Dorothy is seducing the commander with the sweet temptation of residing in Eden. She asks the commander what he thinks of the apple, and upon hearing his response, Dorothy smugly replies how he won't find that flavor inside of the Ark. She then offers the commander to indulge in as much as he wants. As the tour continues, Dorothy shows the commander the central research facility next. She also informs him that Cecil had created the pilgrims that he'd met before, Haran, Noah, and Isabel. She also says how Eden is 50 years ahead of the Ark in technological advancements. Yes, a small settlement on the surface is more advanced than the entire combined might of the Ark. It was also Cecil who designed the entirety of Eden and the optical camouflage that envelops the entire base, this making Eden able to stay undetected on the surface from any wandering raptures. Even the simulation room Eden has far outclasses the Ark. They're capable to train more effectively here and harness their abilities more. Dorothy states that being strong for both humans and Nikkes are necessary to survive here, and by doing that, Eden avoids becoming like the Ark, a place, according to Dorothy, where the few are exploited by the many. For those of you that have played through Overzone, this is a direct callback to being locked out by the Ark when Goddess's mission was completed. Dorothy sees Paradise as a place where there is an even balance of power. Nikkes and humans can live in perfect harmony. However, Dorothy knows that everyone has their own view of what is considered just. As the tour ends, Dorothy asks the commander what he thought of Eden, to which he replies that it is exactly as he imagined it. According to Dorothy, this place is a utopia. Dorothy tells the commander that she believes he is the key to overcoming the crisis that befalls Eden. When inquiring what she exactly means by this, Dorothy replies, stating this crisis involves the heretics. Because the commander had defeated Modernia, Dorothy feels that he can do the same against the heretic that they're currently facing. The heretic they're fighting is a member of the Queen's vanguard. Within this heretic, hatred for humanity burns deep, and she has her sights set on Eden. The heretic is codenamed Nihilister, and they've had 5 previous encounters with her, with every confrontation ending in a stalemate. Dorothy feels that now that they have secured Vophaus, they have a greater chance than before, but they cannot allow Eden's entire destiny to rest solely on a single bullet. Dorothy states that, according to one of her old friends, the commander is sort of a miracle worker and has done what others deemed impossible several times over. Dorothy hopes that the commander will be able to lend them some of that expertise, and in return, they can promise him anything. She knows that he wants Vophaus, and Dorothy tells the commander they can give it to him. The commander, silent, then asks Johann if he agreed to any of this. Dorothy tells him that Johann doesn't know about it yet, but not to worry. She will be able to pursue him. His rebuttal is simple. The commander has one condition, one regarding his squad mates. He wants to ensure they are safe. Dorothy already had this accounted for, and the counters, to the commander's surprise, had already found their way to Eden. The counters and Papillon are relieved to reunite with the commander once again. The commander is shocked, asking how they got to Eden. Just like him, all of the counters were also tested, and evidently, everyone passed. Papillon raised a good point, that the members of Eden only want those who can prove themselves. It is also revealed that the counters are not aware of Dorothy's plan, and the commander asks what they think of it. Though they're skeptical, this is their only chance to get their hands on Vophaus. Anise also states that, knowing the commander, she is sure he doesn't want to take on all of Eden. Papillon chimes in and says if they do accept their proposal, they will be aligning themselves with the psychopath Johann. After a bit of deliberation, the group decides to accept Dorothy's offer, and when she reunites with them, Dorothy is pleased to hear this. Dorothy states that the operation to exterminate the heretic will take place tomorrow. She also informs the group that she has succeeded in getting Cecil on board, and smugly adds that if Cecil agrees to something, Johann surely is to agree with it as well. Dorothy hands the commander a loaded handgun, the first bullet in the chamber being Vophaus. This is a token of trust and goodwill, according to Dorothy. With the commander and Vophaus as their ace in the hole, Dorothy feels that victory, for once, is within their reach. Chapter 20 begins with Cecil initiating the joint operation between Counters and Inherit, all under the shared goal of defeating Nihilister. Cecil, during this mission, will act as the group's operator, scanning and purifying the area of alpha particles. Using past data on Inherit's encounter with Nihilister, Cecil is able to track her current position, sending the information to both Johan and the commander. Cecil warns the group that Nihilister will be taking to the skies and moving fast, so they can't waste any time tracking her. The commander is shocked to hear that Nihilister can fly without the aid of any artificial suits or augmentations, and Cecil reinforces this fact by stating that Nihilister's nickname is Fire Dragon. While in flight, she resembles a creature of legend, spitting scorching flames and incinerating the earth beneath her. Evidently, Inherit and Johan are not too pleased working with the commander, Counters, and Papillon. Isabelle voices her disgust with the group, stating how pathetic they are, asking Johan if he's really okay working with this subpar scum from the Ark. Though Dorothy had been creating a scheme of her own, to both Cecil and Johan, it doesn't matter so long as Nihilister is killed. Johan answers Isabelle's question with a stern no, and concludes that they'll be proceeding as if it were an individual operation. Despite inheriting Johan's rough exterior, Dorothy still tries to comfort the commander. Even though they're not very cordial, they are the best squad to accompany them to take down Nihilister. Crossing paths with the Raptors while tracking, Counters witness firsthand the flawless nature of Johan's actions as a commander. Like a true tactician, Johan gives out orders to eradicate the Raptors before they even know what hit them. They're swift and coordinated, on a level far superior than the Counters. At this point, it's as if Counters doesn't even need to be there. What is their purpose on this mission? Cannon fodder? Anise questions the veracity of the mission and their involvement, and once more, Dorothy tries to interject with damage control, stating that they're needed to help take down Nihilister. She urges everyone to cooperate, only to be met with a stern no from Johan. He expresses his distaste in bringing in the clowns to this operation. To Johan, Counter's goal is simple: to find and secure Vophaus. While the commander tells Johan that he refuses to use Vophaus, Johan's rebuttal is quite simple. The commander is intentionally sabotaging the operation. With tensions high, Cecil breaks in, informing the group that Nihilister is on the move again, and if she gets any further, they won't be able to track her. Cecil tells Johan that they will settle this dispute later. Reluctantly, Johan, under Cecil's orders, proceeds forward with the Counters and Inherit. While trekking onward, Johan orders the group to stop. Before the group lay a flaming crater. While Anise and Neon are in awe of the sheer power that must have gone into scorching the rock to molten mush, Rappy suggests this is probably a warning. Nihilister knows that she's being tracked, and this is a little calling card, one to keep the group away from her. Seeing this sudden shift in their tracking, Dorothy suggests that they discuss the operation further. Knowing Cecil, even without appearing, can still hear their conversation, Johan briefly dials in, asking to be excused for a moment. With communications cut by Johan to Cecil, he can finally speak his mind to the commander's actions thus far. Johan tells the commander to head back, abandon the mission, and allow Johan and Inherit to finish it alone. When confronted on the veracity of this choice, Johan's reply is simple. The commander lacks the conviction to complete a mission like this. Him being there will only bring the rest of the group down. The commander retorts, stating that, even though he won't use Vophaus, he never said that he wouldn't fight. To Johan, rightfully so, this is simply abysmal. The commander possesses the ability to take down Nihilister in a single shot, and yet, he'll choose an alternative way. One filled with a higher possibility of damage or death befalling the group. In the heat of the argument, a rapture fastly approaches the commander and Johan. While Counters are ready to engage, Johan simply flings a rapture, flying it overhead and causing it to explode. As if swatting away a bug, Johan had dispatched a rapture with a display of superhuman strength. As if it were nothing but a mere nuance, Johan regains his train of thought and continues voicing his distaste for the commander's actions. He continues his verbal assault on the reasoning behind him telling the commander to leave this operation. Though the commander agrees that they don't belong here, he meets Johan's speech with one of his own. To the commander, if one difficult fight means sparing one more life, then it's worth a shot. Johan is rendered speechless at this comment. The commander continues, stating that he won't allow Johan to convince him otherwise. Breaking their small squabble, Dorothy states how they don't have time to be going back and forth like this, to which Johan agrees, stating that they'll soon re-establish connection with Cecil. The commander's answer to Johan is a respectable one. He has resolve that is not easily bent, yet Johan wants to see how far the commander is willing to go. Johan questions what the commander can bring to the table to turn the tides against Nihilister. Although the commander knows he can't do much without his Nikkes, his response is that his skills lie with being a commander. While the commander may talk the talk, Johan wants to see if he can actually back up his words with actions. If the commander can't, as Johan states, he'll hand him over to Nihilister himself. To further test the commander, once they move to a new location, he begins a test of wits, a test to determine if the commander has what it takes to actually lead his Nikkes in the battle they'll face ahead. Johan poses a hypothetical battle, and the commander must respond by giving the details on how he would direct his team to react and attack. As counters watch from afar, Johan continues to assault the commander with 100 hypotheticals, not missing an instance where he could correct the commander's lapse in judgment. As a series of tests end, Johan tells the commander his results: 91 failures, 6 draws, and 3 wins. A less than pathetic outcome, according to Johan. Dorothy retorts Johan's statement regarding the commander's results. Though it was a low percentage, the commander got 3 of those wins back-to-back consecutively near the end of the trials. This doesn't only display improvement, but the commander's ability to adapt to Johan's onslaught of scenarios. Both Papillon and the counters are also upset with Johan's treatment of their commander. They all collectively lash out against Johan, stating how the commander is an up-and-coming star in the Arc, and how everyone respects him, even the Big Three. To them, he should be respected due to his achievements, and his reputation should be enough for Johan to place his faith within the counters and the commander. To this, the group falls silent. Johan, who was only a moment ago lambasting the commanders, says nothing. Isabel is the one to interject, stating how the counters had really done it now. Johan, according to Isabel, despises the Arc and anything to do with it. Johan then notifies his squad that he will need a moment alone, and leaves in a hurry. Feeling a sense of remorse, Papillon apologizes for making things worse. With an awkward silence filling the air, Dorothy takes the mantle, stating that she can salvage this mishap between the two groups. She just needs to talk with him. With this, Dorothy makes her way over to Johan, leaving the group alone together. But if you thought Dorothy was going to mend broken ties, well, let's just say her plans are more insidious than simply doing just that.
They could be the perfect shield.
What?
This is all you have to do. We draw Nihilister to us by releasing a signal. Given how aggressive she has been in the past, this shouldn't be too difficult. Then we send the counters out under the pretext of conducting surveillance, and have them encounter her first. No matter how hard they hit her, she'll just keep recovering. Eventually, they'll realize they have no choice but to use Vapaus if they want to make it out alive. Once that infernal commander no longer has any compunction about using Vapaus, that's when we move in. Not only will we defeat Nihilister, but if the counters manage to survive, they'll consider us their saviors.
So that's it. That's why you brought them along.
Yes, you heard that right. Dorothy intends to use the counters as literal cannon fodder. Something easily disposable should they find themselves in a pinch fighting against Nihilister. With this, the duo regroup and establish connection with Cecil once again. Visibly irritated, Cecil chews Johan out for cutting connections with her so briefly. After a small altercation, the group continues over to their next target location. As they continue pressing onward, they realize the geothermal level is rising in their vicinity. The heat energy around them is spiking significantly. Although Anise tries some light-hearted commentary saying it could be a hot spring, Haran interjects, saying it's something more than that. They had stumbled right into Nihilister's territory. Cecil chimes in, slightly confused by Haran's statement. She's not picking up any heat signals on the scan, but she thinks that Nihilister could simply be hiding somewhere that she can't pick up, ready to ambush them at any moment. Isabel asks if she should do an aerial scan, and Dorothy gives her permission to. She also exchanges a brief text with Isabel, who simply gives a nod and takes to the sky. Suddenly, the group hears a noise from above. This isn't Isabel returning from her scan, but instead, the final confrontation had begun. Cecil comes through the comm system, saying that it's Nihilister, coming in hot. Confused, the counters can't see the impending threat, when suddenly, the clouds in the sky seem to split in two. what looks to be a meteor comes hurling down, searing its way into the atmosphere. A deafening explosion rings through the surface around them, the mysterious object colliding with the earth below. Once the dust settles, a NIKKE, or rather, a monster, is revealed. A crimson dragon, bathed in flames. The heretic Johann and Inherit had fought before. NIKKE. Just like before, the commander is frozen with fear. The same feeling that washed over him when he first saw Marion resurfaces. That feeling of pure malice and hatred oozing from NIKKE. A feeling so strong it's palpable. According to Johann, NIKKE is one of the Queen's elite soldiers, or her royal vanguard, and an ancient relic which he should have disposed of long ago. As a brief side note, this is also the first mention of the Queen's royal guards, and if you'll recall from previous chapters, Modernia was the Queen's confidant. It does seem that every heretic has one thing in common, a shared hatred for the human race. Even the tone NIKKE spews towards Inherit screams malice and hatred. Putrid piles of filth from Eden, that is what NIKKE calls them. Cecil chimes in once more, saying that NIKKE's core is gathering strength rapidly, and Rappy begins picking up some high temperature readings around them too. The situation they're in, though dire, is simple. If they get too close to NIKKE, they'll literally melt into puddles. The commander attempts to run to avoid an incoming slash. It seems that NIKKE isn't interested in the NIKKEs or Johann, but instead, in the commander. Something about the commander catches NIKKE's attention, and it would appear that her core output is diminishing. Cecil was taken aback by this, wondering how this could be possible. NIKKE begins to make her way to the commander, swiftly bypassing his NIKKEs and Inherit. The commander, rightfully so, is frozen in place with just how swiftly NIKKE made her way over to him. She remarks how pleased she is that the group had brought her a gift, and with terrifying strength, she lifts the commander by his collar. Her razor-sharp tail points at the commander's stomach, and NIKKE threatens to cut it open at a moment's notice. She asks the commander if he remembers a talking rapture. Confused, the commander asks what any of this has to do with Chatterbox, and NIKKE informs him that Chatterbox was one of her favorite underlings. If you haven't clocked it by now, shit is really about to go down. As she continues to speak to the commander, her tone quickly becomes sharp and aggressive. She remarks how both the commander and those pesky pilgrims had conspired together to kill Chatterbox. Instead of seeking revenge though, NIKKE seems to flip the script. She flippantly states that she's not about to hold grudges and tells the commander that they can both benefit from this little interaction. NIKKE continues, stating that Chatterbox had mentioned something quite unique before he died. Chatterbox had told NIKKE that if she were to capture the commander and cut him open, she would find something of great interest to her. NIKKE wonders what secrets the commander holds within, and how Chatterbox could have known it's what she was searching for all along. She refers to the commander as a black box, stating Eden had brought it to her on a silver platter. This is where the real mystery surrounding the commander comes into full view in our story. If you'd recall, we don't know the history of the commander before his very first operation. We only know that he was a sickly child, and he had a rare form of blood, and an uncanny way of clearing missions with a 0% chance of survival. He, by all definitions, is an anomaly in the story of NIKKE, and now, we can add the fact that he's important to the heretics. Overjoyed by this sudden revelation, NIKKE turns into her dragon form, setting the area ablaze. She takes hold of the commander and takes flight. Immediately, Johann yells for Isabel to give chase. However, Dorothy tells Isabel to wait. Yes, Dorothy is literally allowing NIKKE, you know, a heretic, to kidnap the commander and run. Surprisingly, it's Papillon who springs into action. She jumps, taking hold of NIKKE's tail with the counters following shortly after. With the counters and Papillon barely hanging on, NIKKE soars to the sky. While Inherit gazes from below, the counters, Papillon, and the commander slowly disappear from their sight. Now the fight is up to the counters. NIKKE lands at what she calls her base and transforms back into her NIKKE form. With the sudden landing, the counters and Papillon make harsh contact with the seared earth beneath them. Frantically, they search for a visual confirmation of the commander. Anise confirms that she sees the commander and he yells out to the group. Nihilister, evidently, is not too pleased with these stowaways who tagged along with her, and tells the commander to wait as she disposes of counters. To buy some time, the commander asks Nihilister what her offer was. Her response is plain and simple. Her offer was a choice, to spare his life or those of his Nikkes. She remarks that she could just kill them all, but there's no fun in that. Nihilister states that fires are very hard to control, and picking who lives or dies is exhausting to her, so she let the commander choose instead. The counters are raring to go to engage in battle with Nihilister. She taunts the group, stating that if she played with them, she'd lose her precious black box in the process, which is something that Nihilister wouldn't want in the end. Instead of dirtying her own hands, Nihilister lets her beauties engage in battle instead. With this, Rappy makes visual contact with 50 raptures, but the number is only growing. Countless raptures are incoming and swiftly the group engages in battle. Surprisingly, the counters are able to dispatch the raptures. Upon attempting to get close to the commander, Nihilister blocks her path. She decides to burn everything down, going full nuclear in this encounter. Once more, she begins to transform into her dragon form, and seeing an opening, the commander rushes towards counters. Nihilister is readying her dragon breath to fire off as the group scrambles for cover. They hurl themselves behind a nearby wall as scorching flames envelop the surrounding area. The cover counters is hiding behind starts to melt, and it's only a matter of time before it's completely destroyed. While this fight ensues, the angle shifts back to Inherit and Johan. Seeing the fire from afar, Isabel alerts the rest of the team. Johan tells them their main objective is to link up with counters. The group is ready to mobilize and head in to back them up. Evidently, the situation has become dire, and the counters need assistance to get out of this battle unscathed. Despite Johan's orders, Dorothy tells him to wait, asking if rushing in is necessary. At this point, I get it, Dorothy. You want the counters to die. She thinks Nihilister can tire herself out while fighting against counters, and using that opportunity, they can take her down once and for all. Johan decides to take the opinion of everyone else and Inherit on this choice. Haran states that getting to Eden wasn't easy, and that she's ready to do anything to protect it, even laying down her life in the process. Noah is tired of waiting around and states how they're not weaklings like the counters are, and Isabel is simply willing to go along with whatever Johan decides. With this, the plan seems simple: move forward and aid the counters. However, once more, Dorothy interjects. Dorothy, now with an evil smirk across her face, states how unbelievable the situation is. She jokingly adds how all of them must have gone into the Ark and have Nymph implanted into them. She also adds that she brought the counters along to take the brunt of the attack. That was her whole plan from the start. She did all of this to ensure Inherit's safety. Now filled with anger, Dorothy tells them they don't understand what the real threat of the situation is. Even if Nihilister is defeated, it is far from over. The Queen still has many subordinates under her command, ones that dwarf Nihilister in terms of power. To the Queen and her underlings, Eden is nothing but a pesky thorn in their side, one that could be destroyed at any moment. To Dorothy, Eden is her paradise, the one she so desperately sought in Overzone. This is her reason for being, her home, the final thing she can cling on to since humanity abandoned her so many decades ago. Even if it meant sacrificing the counters, Dorothy wanted to do it to ensure Eden can thrive for another day. Haran then chimes in, telling Dorothy that they are all usually happy to do whatever she says, but that was due to the fact that she never forced them to cross the line. Isabel also throws her hat into the ring, saying if she met someone like the commander sooner, she would have stayed in the Ark over residing in Eden. The mere mention of the Ark causes Dorothy to snap.
The Ark. The Ark. I'm glad you brought it up. Don't you all despise the Ark? Detest everything about it? Especially you, Commander. You were the most vehement of anyone. After all you've done for that place, what has it ever done to thank you? Fine then. Join up with the commander from the Ark. It won't tarnish Eden's reputation in the slightest.
I used to think like that too. But meeting you made me realize something. What I hated was not the Ark, nor the people in it. It was the abhorrent rhetoric you were spewing earlier today.
You've all gone insane.
Let's go.
With this exchange over and Dorothy's plan falling to shambles, Inherit and Johann move out to aid the counters. Evidently, Nihilister is having fun toying with the counters. They constantly are ducking and weaving from cover to cover, careful not to get melted by Nihilister's fire breath. She taunts them to come out and face her, promising to make their death quick as she continues her aerial assault. By this point, the counters have taken extensive damage and are not going to hold out much longer. The commander feels like it's time for them to use their ace in the hole, but Neon voices her opinion against it. It would defeat the entire purpose of their mission. And for once, Anise tries to be a beacon of hope for the commander, saying that they just need to hold out and maybe Johann and his team will come as backup. Anise then asks the commander if any of the battle simulations conducted with Johann would help in this situation, to which the commander affirms. With this, the counters, once more, gather their bearings and go for broke against Nihilister. Not only is Nihilister powerful, but she's also quite durable. The counters, despite their best efforts, can do no more than cause Nihilister a little pain. At this point, the commander has no other choice but to use Voppaus. After a brief moment of deliberation, to Nihilister's surprise, the commander lowers his gun. The commander walks towards a puzzled Nihilister. He notices a bomb planted near her feet, and in a desperate attempt, he thinks he could save everyone else if he reaches it. But before any of that can happen, a familiar voice calls out to him.
You fool. You'll kill us all. Consider this a valuable lesson. How can you expect to save someone else when you can't even save yourself?
With backup having arrived, Johann shoots Nihilister. To her shock, she begins convulsing, then maniacally laughing shortly after. Johann proceeds to unload round after round into Nihilister, who now believes that he's also fully lost it. This time though, Nihilister is beginning to feel the pain of the shots, and she is not regenerating as swiftly as before. Wasting no time and seeing an opening, Johann tells his team to give her all you've got. Inherit proceeds to release a barrage of attacks on Nihilister. Puzzled, Johann explains to the commander that this was all his gamble. Voppaus wasn't the first bullet he shot, directly contradicting what he had told the commander before. He then apologizes to the commander for deceiving him, but it was something that had to be done should the commander have acted out of fear. Johann helps the commander to get to his feet, and gathering their bearings, the counters muster the last of their strength and decide to join the fray against Nihilister, supporting the barrage Inherit was unleashing upon her. As the battle shifts in the favor of Inherit and counters, Haran puts her sight to Nihilister. In a panic, Nihilister says that she can kill and fight for them. She can still be of use to them. Haran has no intention to listen. However, it's Dorothy who steps in and tells Haran to stand down. She states that they'll hear Nihilister out. Dorothy's question to Nihilister is simple. She asks how she can take down the Queen.
I have a plan. One that I've been planning for a long time. Perhaps you've heard of Lilith's body. The Queen's predecessor, and the only thing she neglected to take care of during her time on the surface. If Lilith's body can be found, I will be able to kill the Queen!
Predecessor. That word, to this day, has stuck with me. Predecessor is defined as a person who held the title before the current holder. This means, essentially, Lilith was affiliated with the Queen in some way long ago. If you played through Red Ash, this could mean several things. Predecessor in this sense sticks out with me for one thing in particular. If you recall, Lilyweiss, or Lilith, was not the first NIKKE, but she was the first successful iteration of NIKKE during the Rapture invasion. There was one NIKKE before her, one whose body wasn't able to handle the conversion or power that Lilyweiss currently possessed. Through the Lost Relics in Red Ash, we get a glimpse through Lilyweiss of who this person was. All we know is she is no longer with us, and that her body was discarded, spread across the land. Despite this though, there remains a grave that the legendary commander and Lilyweiss visit from time to time. and the notion of her spreading across the land could either be literal or metaphorical. This would make sense since she's technically before Lily Weiss's time, making the predecessor comment hold more weight in this scenario. As we know from White Memory, the head of Lily Weiss was taken, and who's to say a compatible brain wasn't put on the original NIKKE's body. Nihilister states that if Lilith's body is found, she'll be able to kill the queen. However, there is only one problem with this scenario. Recalling White Memory once more, in the hidden ending, we learn that Snow White underwent her final mind switch that we're aware of. In doing so, it is entirely unknown if any of the members of Goddess know where Lily Weiss's grave is.
It's gone. Why? How can this be happening? Her face is gone. Only her body is left. No one will remember her this way. I haven't achieved anything yet. I haven't accomplished anything she expected of me. Will her story really end so meaninglessly? No way. I refuse to accept this. This can't happen to her. Not to Lily Weiss.
The only person that could possibly still remember is either Dorothy or Rapunzel. However, that information remains unknown. Snow White and Scarlet both have not remembered the location due to encountering mind switches in their time on the surface. Revealing this information, Nihilister begs the group to get Vophouse out of her. Before anyone can act though, a foreign voice interjects, displeased with Nihilister's actions.
Get the Vophouse out of me!
Silence. Your loose tongue will be your undoing.
Commander, should we attack?
No. What you're seeing is just the tip of the iceberg. This is one opponent we don't stand a chance against.
A wise decision. I suggest you lay low and tread softly. The next time you awaken me, this Eden of yours will become your tomb.
With this, we are introduced to Liberalia, a heretic far stronger than Nihilister. One with such strength that she can threaten not just Nihilister's life, but the life of everyone in Eden too. It is also incredibly important to note that not even Johann wanted to engage Liberalia, knowing they would lose even if they gave it their all. Liberalia is still a character that we know very little about. Though she seems very tranquil and surreal, I think that's what offsets me the most about her. With this ominous encounter, and their mission deemed as a success, the group makes their way back to Eden. Upon arriving back to Eden, the commander can't help but feel a sense of unease. Though the group made it out in one piece, he had failed the initial mission. Not only was Nihilister still roaming the surface, but he also had wasted the Vophouse that they had spent so long searching for. Cecil enters the room and intends to reveal yet another shocking revelation in the story. Though she's aware that the commander is in no mood to listen to her, she tells him that something Nihilister had said had caught her interest. The fact that Nihilister was after something within the commander. Cecil has a hunch as to what it is. However, she doesn't want to go to such extremes as cutting him open to verify her suspicions. Cecil's solution is a simple health exam in the form of an hour of the commander's time. A few injections, drawing blood, taking photos, things of that nature. The commander eventually agrees and the tests begin. Upon finalizing the results of her examination, Cecil asks if the commander's blood type was ever saved in the ARC's database. If you'd recall, it wasn't. This being the reason Mary and Pepper fell into a panic when attempting to conduct a blood transfusion on him earlier. The ominous warning from Anderson is also brought to light in this scenario too, stating that the commander's blood type, if revealed to the ARC, could cause him to become a target. Yet another important piece of information is revealed. If you haven't clocked it by now, Cecil is one of the brightest minds to ever work under the ARC at one point in time. She's extremely sharp, efficient, and most of all, observant. She understands the inner workings of the central government, because at one point in time, that was who she answered to. Being an ex-researcher from the ARC, she's all too familiar with the secrecy which surrounds the society keeping humanity locked underground. According to Cecil, keeping the health examinations and the blood type of the commander secret is no easy feat. As we've stated previously, the ARC has eyes and ears everywhere, silently keeping tabs and collecting data. Whoever is acting to keep the commander's credentials a secret, according to Cecil, must care deeply about him. This is where our deputy chief comes into play once more. From the very start of this game, there is one person who's taken extra care to ensure the commander's safety, and the only one who shares this rare blood type with him. This being Anderson. Cecil congratulates the commander, albeit in the most backhanded way that she can. She tells him that he has been blessed, or rather cursed, with the RHX blood type. Yet another bomb is dropped on the players, and that is the reason behind this blood type being so sought after. RHX, as a research note suggested in Chapter 19, is used to synthesize Voppaus. Remember the words of Snow White in Chapter 17? Her warning that once the commander learns how to synthesize Voppaus that the raptures would be the least of his worries? Well, it seems like that has all come to fruition. The commander has uncovered the secret to creating it, and Cecil just so happens to know how to do exactly that. Cecil also appears to have the commander's back too, whether it be pure or of malicious intent. She states that she'll destroy the findings of this lab result. No one can know that the commander is a holder of RHX, and that includes his NIKKEs and Papillon. Cecil's next observation only makes the looming mystery surrounding her deepen. She's aware that Papillon isn't working for the same deputy chief as the commando unit, and thus urges him to never disclose this information of his test results. If he did, he'd become a lab rat for the central government. The commander is aware that Papillon will pull this kind of stunt to climb the corporate ladder, so he takes heed to Cecil's warning. Interrupting their conversation, Johann enters the room and asks the commander what his next course of action may be. Although the commander is unsure, Johann states that he could reside in Eden. In his own way, Johann also congratulates the commander for their actions since arriving there.
I could turn you into a proper commander. Don't believe me? Maybe nobody remembers this anymore. But I was once considered something of a rising star by the media.
Following this, we also get a brief look at Johann's past, and just like the commander, he also, at one point, was an up-and-coming star in the ARC. Interestingly enough, just like many events foreshadowed in this game, a brief history of Johann's success in the ARC can be found in the Lost Relics. Found in Chapter 19 and Chapter 20 of the story's Relics, we uncover scraps of daily news articles outlining the rise and fall of Johann. To keep things brief, Johann was also known as New Hope, and leaded the second reclamation period of the ARC. This basically was another act to try and reclaim areas of the surface for humanity. Eventually though, his fame turned to scrutiny, as an incident involving raptors invading the ARC happened during his time. Johann, subsequently, was blamed for all of this happening and the deaths of the civilians, NIKKEs, and commanders that followed suit. He was then imprisoned in the ARC's rehabilitation center, only to be deemed as shot and killed in an escape attempt. Although Johann was written off dead by the central government, that's merely one more lie that we can chalk up to them telling the public. Their new hope, one which they casted aside, and most likely was framed and imprisoned for crimes he didn't commit, was still alive, and now residing in Eden. This also puts into question just how old Johann and Cecil are, and how they're able to live on the surface without eventually succumbing to their mortality. Then again, Anderson is suspected to be the legendary commander, and that man is older than them both. That is, if Cecil isn't one of the original Elysian researchers from Red Ash. But that's a topic for another video. We then are met with Papillon relaying information of Eden to the ARC, only to be caught by Dorothy red-handed. Instead of simply disposing Papillon, Dorothy suggests an alternative solution. Papillon can only communicate with the ARC if Dorothy permits it. Actively, this makes Papillon a hostage, and such trivial matters as her relation to Chief Birmingham don't scare Dorothy in the slightest. Once more, the prey has fallen into the spider's web, right into Dorothy's plans. Finally, wrapping up this chapter, we're met with Nihilister and Liberaglio once more. While Nihilister is clearly infuriated with the results of her earlier fight, Liberaglio is more irritated with Nihilister's actions.
Curse those blood! I won't be able to calm down until I wipe out their entire base!
Be quiet, Nihilister. You already forced me to appear once. Are you trying to disrupt my slumber once again? Compose yourself before I put you to sleep permanently.
You'd really kill me.
Yes. The Queen does not permit internal strife between her vanguards. You've bungled this job badly. This Queen is very disappointed with you. If you intend to regain the trust which you have lost, you must wipe out that place on the surface they call Eden. Should you fail, we'll bury you long before those humans ever have a chance to.
Don't you threaten me! I'll burn you to a crisp before you ever make a move!
That reminds me. Before I arrived, you were running your mouth about something. Remind me what it was again. Something about Lilith, wasn't it? If the Queen were to get wind of this...
Oh, you mean that? I was only bluffing. I was merely buying time so you would finally mosey along, slowpoke. If anything, the Queen would praise me for my ingenuity.
Whatever happens, your actions going forward will determine what you truly meant by those words. The Queen is always watching. Never forget.
All I care about is burning those cockroaches to the ground.
With this ominous exchange, the scene fades out, ending the chapter off, leaving the viewers with more questions than answers. If we've learned anything from these chapters, it's the fact that once more, the central government cannot be trusted, and the Ark is a prison rather than an oasis. Did you enjoy these two chapters, and what was your favorite part? Be sure to let me know in the comment sections down below. Thank you all for joining me, and I will see you all in the next video. Jane.